Howdy, Pastor Mark Driscoll here. I want to apologize, not for the content that you're about to receive, but for the quality. And recently, my wife Grace and I sat down with Mark Burmich from Choices, one of the largest and longest standing pregnancy ministries in not only Arizona and the Southwest, but also in the United States of America. We've had the pleasure of getting to know him in recent years, and like to partner with the ministry that he leads. And we sat down to talk about the issue of abortion, and there is a wild amount of misinformation and disinformation as we head into the election surrounding abortion. For those of us who are Christians, this is an issue that is very near and dear to us because we're talking about the sanctity of human life created by God from conception, fearfully and wonderfully made, and known by God from the womb. In many states, there are various propositions on the ballot, and the media campaign around those propositions is just flat out lying from the father of lies. For example, Proposition 139 here in Arizona, my wife is literally ready to just take the TV in our house and throw it out the window if she sees another commercial, that it's lying about Prop 139, talking about we need to, preserve abortion. And it's like, well, it's already legal in our state up to 15 weeks. We're Bible-believing Christian conservatives, so we still think that's too far, but they're lying and saying that abortion has been outlawed and banned. It's just so maddening and frustrating. So my wife has very strong opinions about this, as do I. And so we sat down with Mark from Choices to talk about abortion heading into the election. And what you're about to see is content that is fantastic, but the quality, frankly, is not. So I'm apologizing in advance. The guys wrote the notes up for me. So we did 3 interviews back to back to back. Same set, same technology, same microphones. Everything was the same. Sat down and interviewed Carrie Lake and then Eli Crane, congressman, and then sat down to talk on the abortion issue with Mark from Choices. Here's what happened. The guys wrote it down. The first 2, flawless interviews, no issues of any sort or kind. Literally an hour later, same gear, same room, everything the same, complete tech failure. And they had 4 backups for audio capture. 4. All 4 failed. So we have redundancy with redundancy with redundancy, all failed. And the audio is gone. And so complete obliteration of an attempt to talk about abortion from a Christian perspective. Every time in my recent memory that we've sat down to talk about the issues of life and abortion, we have the wildest tech failures. I can't even tell you how consistent this is. Cameras drop, mics break, hard drives freeze, wild failure, inexplicable. I would just say, seems to me like it's demonic. The team was so devastated and frantic, and we're so grateful for Mark coming in to do this interview with me, that they were trying to recover the audio. Again, 4 different audio sources all failed simultaneously, inexplicably. The video was fine, and all of the microphones were not, for no reason other than, I would just say, seems like the devil doesn't want to have this message go out. We were thinking about sitting down and re-recording it. Instead, they literally pulled the audio from the security feed, like some camera up in the corner of our studio. The video is great. The audio is not. We're not going to reshoot it. This must be content that is so important for the work of life, and it must be so hated by the enemy of life that he was trying to stop it. And we've decided we're just going to go ahead and release it, bad audio and all, and hope that it ministers to you. And if you're a Christian, get out and vote. Get out and vote for whatever candidate or candidates are closest to your Christian pro-life position. And if you don't have somebody who agrees with you, find somebody that's the closest to you that you can vote for and vote for them. During this season of elections, it's not about being idealistic. It's about saving lives. In Jesus' name, I apologize in advance for the audio, but the content should be worth it. And we have added subtitles so you can follow along.
Hey, Mark and Mark.
First and second Mark.
Yes. We're here. We want to talk about the topic of life. It's on the ballot in many states, including Arizona. And Mark here is the president and CEO of Choices locally. We'll just want to have a conversation about what the environment looks right now. And it's like right now. And just be honest about where we're at and how we can be helpful.
As we're heading into the election, this issue is very contentious. And the amount of money spent on misinformation and misinformation is wild. Like, we want to hear about Choices. Just in our house, the commercial comes on, my usually kind wife is turning green, or she's much larger and ready to break the television. She's like, that's not true. That's not a fact. That's not reality. That's a lie. And so there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of fear tactics that are going on. So maybe tell us a little bit about Choices historically, what that has been able to do, and what you guys feel present.
So Choices is Arizona's largest and longest-running pro-life citizen source group. We've been in operation 41 years, and we've served about 208 housing clients. And we exist to serve on the mission field, greater land pregnancy. And in that time, we've been able to save the lives of just a hair over 10,000 babies. We are unapologetically Christ-centered. We get an opportunity, we'll pray with that client, we'll share the gospel with them. And as a result, we've seen about 2,300 individuals come to accept Christ in San Arizona today. But we offer pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, options counseling. We have boutiques in all of our centers, parenting education programs. And what's really important for us is also the post-abortive recovery care, because that journey does not have to be the end of their story. As we say, there is redemption, there is forgiveness, there's a new day. And so we're here to not only care for the mother, the child, but also their spiritual well-being as well. Again, full locations across the valley, and that's what we are.
And so there are other organizations like yours across the country. I mean, how widespread nationally is what you're doing in our state?
So there's 3,300, give or take, pregnancy resource groups just like Choices across the U.S. And across the state, there's a handful of others that are about our size, and then probably 100 or so that are a little bit smaller than what we do. But there are several PRCs, as we call it, across the state and the nation. We actually greatly outnumber Planned Parenthood's by a large number.
Planned Parenthood, how much money are they getting from government agencies?
It ebbs and flows depending on the year. The last financial report I saw was somewhere in the tune of about $660 million. Keep in mind their last annual report showed that they had about $2 billion in physical assets as well.
So real estate. Correct. So you're dealing with monopoly and empire.
It's a David and Goliath story for sure. Yeah.
Well, then on the other side, it's donations largely from God's people and churches.
100%. Yeah. That's who we are. So we receive no federal funding of any kind. It's purely donation, either that or it's grants or it's churches and individuals stepping up to help support what we're doing in the front lines there.
What does the average volunteer look like who's just coming in to serve and help? Oftentimes young women who are in a difficult situation. They're just doing it out of loving their neighbor.
Yeah. There's two distinct types of volunteers that come to Choices. One is the individual that hears about what we do, whether it's the church or school or friends or whatever, and they come and they want to just help out in any way they possibly can. The other is the woman that's actually gone through the pain of abortion, and she wants to come because she wants to help these individuals not make the same choice that she made. And anybody that comes into volunteer Choices, admittedly, it is a rigorous process to make sure they're in alignment, and we actually want to release to the top with clients. But if there's everything that they can do to really impact that client, offering that to them and set up Choices. Those are the two main categories.
So you're looking at federally funded, agenda of death, completely based on what I call Malthusian eugenics and Margaret Sanger and forced population controls, rooted literally in racism, to where these clinics are put in the poorest communities with ethnic minorities, and all of that is just targeted death to people that God loves, and it's all done in the name of social justice, and it's the greatest injustice in American history in recent memory, and it's just wild. So, what are some of the things that locally you are doing just to love and help and serve people and the other organizations like yours? I mean, what are the practical things that are happening day to day from unpaid volunteers that are just trying to help?
What I love about Choices is it really is the embodiment of the community coming together to serve. It would not exist without volunteers, church partners, individual donors. But like I said, we're there to minister to them. We only have about 2 hours with that individual in the first amendment. Those are very, very crucial 2 hours at a time. We try to build a relationship with them, establish trust with them. But it's all done out of a genuine desire to invoke them. We love you. We care about you. You have a purpose regardless of what you've been told in your life. You happen to be here right now because you think you're pregnant. The way that I describe Choices is we're a ministry that just happens to offer pregnancy tests and ultrasounds. But we're here to do this for them 100%. But we talk about what we do inside the centers. I mentioned the main services that we offer, but another huge component of that is life skills, is education, is connecting with the churches. As I've said over the past 5.5 years in this world-leading organization, all roads have to lead back to the church for there to be success in space, period. Choices is not built for long-term care and doing life with them, but the church is. And so getting them plugged into a church community, helping them learn how to actually apply for a job, build a resume, English as a second language, housing, they need a place to live, they need a place to sleep. It's every aspect of that all coming together, whether it's internal at Choices, where they are community partners. It's everybody collectively coming together to try to help the individual. And my new tagline personally is we love the individual and it's how we change the culture. So that's what we do with Choices.
So where do you see happening nationally? We're heading into a very contentious election. In some polls, the leading driver issue is the life issue. And the amount of money that's being spent, from state to state, depending on what proposition you're on the ballot, is quite sad. But what is some of the misinformation that is being widely disseminated, not just in our home state here, some of the nationally on the life issue?
Sure. I think if I were to come at this from a completely pragmatic perspective, and I was all about women's health and women's trends. When you talk about abortion and you actually do your research and you read the cases and reports and you sit down and you talk with people who've gotten the pain of abortion, you'll realize very quickly that even your pragmatic position needs to change and read. It does nothing for women's health, nothing for their mental health, nothing for their emotion.
It's not healthcare.
It's not healthcare. It is the antithesis of healthcare. And so even from that perspective, that's what we see regurgitated over and over and over again. The way that to answer your question, the way that I see and have dissected the life issue over my time here is that at its very nucleus, it is a spiritual issue. It's a spiritual heart issue. You and I see it manifesting culture as a rights issue, socioeconomic, political, choice, economic issue, community failure issues, all of these very nuanced, complicated things. And what we see happening nationally and locally is all of these individuals that want to promote abortion latch onto any one of those areas and just amplify it. They go to a talking point and they just amplify it because they know there's a segment of the population that wants to hear that talking point amplified. And what happens as a result is when we talk about abortion specifically in this political climate is it becomes an abstract. And we lose the individual that's hot in the middle. And regardless of where anybody lands on this issue of having conversations constantly, especially because it's political season, I tell them, don't say, at the end of the day, when this election's over next week, we're still going to be seeing clients the very next day in Choices who are lost, confused, scared, and alone, who just want help. They don't even care what happens. And so we're seeing this misinformation all over the country. It's about women's health, healthcare, it's not. Or, this proposition is going to completely eradicate it. Or your option to have an abortion, it's not. And it's every lie up and down the book, whether it's their personal well-being, whether it's healthcare, whatever you want to see. It's nothing but lies. You mentioned seeing advertisements for Prop 139. We've reached the point in journalism and political advertising where they can just blatantly lie about it because no one's going to touch it. Right? That's the irony.
Well, just longer too, so talking about a national issue, global issue that has state and local implications. So there's a news outlet, I don't know what name it is, but it's considered sort of leading local, statewide news outlet. And the one story I finally saw connecting Christianity with the life issue, Prop 139 here, which is live. And they're saying over and over, they don't allow abortions. Well, it's legal in Arizona up to 15 weeks. It's just all the way.
Correct.
Yeah, and so, but then it said it was written by a Christian that talked about what Christian school they went to and how they were voting for Prop 139 because of the livelihood of faith. And I was like, the only Christian air quotes that you've platformed in your news media platform on this issue is pro-abortion up to birth. And the use, I went to this Christian school and I'm this Christian person. At this point, it's just so reprehensible and it's so anti-Christ. But if that is your position, you're going to get platform. And so what you get is lying pseudo-Christians and misinformation and disinformation, which I think confuses the average person who's faith-based or conservative or Christian, and they're wondering what the facts even are.
Correct. I speak in churches all the time, specifically around Prop 139. There also gives me an opportunity to speak about the life issue in general. The lack of understanding and information around what's actually out there, whether it's Prop 139 or beyond, is staggering. Some of it's downright from. But the good news is that we are seeing church leaders really step up and say, hey, we don't really know how to talk about this issue. Can you come in? Can you talk there was? Can you talk to me as a pastor privately? How do I address this issue? That's always been our heart, is to really be a resource to come alongside the church. We want individuals in the audience to hear from the church leadership factual information that they can then take back out and disseminate to their community. To actually not hear from that one individual that's pseudo-Christian that was handpicked for that particular article, because that's what happens.
So let me get back to the faith news. I think maybe just as one case study, there are propositions like this across the nation. I mean, you've got very strong opinions. You've spoken to the women at Trinity Church, very well, Prop 139. As a mom of 5 and a grandma of 4, what is your thoughts on Prop 139 as one thing?
I mean, it's devastating. Like, basically, as I train our women in our church, because they want to know truth. I think a lot of people, they're just confused by the lies, by the deceptions. And so I just try to clarify what even the prop and the global issue of life really is. And for us, I've just told the women, God is the one who gives us our rights, and he doesn't give us the right to take the life of a child. And so it's not our right, like it's said in the advertisements. It goes against the doctors of the credit oath to protect life. And there's so many areas that it just is the opposite of what they're saying it is. And I personally know at least a dozen. And I see the after effects of it, whether it was 20 years ago or 2 years ago. And so we do have resources for them as well. And I think it's important because oftentimes the church, when they don't know how to talk about it, they come across as very condemning and very self-righteous. And this is what you have to do. Yes, we want them to support life in our church. We want them to vote God's values, of course. But we also need to, like you said, care for the person. And so we do offer resources, and we'll offer referrals to clinics like yours that will help people with their supportive care. And there's some great resources out there. But looking at the woman, and so when I talk about how we need to vote, how we need to represent life and vote for life, I also say, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for those who have gone through the pain of abortion. Will not you ask forgiveness. And I think it's important to have both aspects when we're talking about it, because there are millions of women who have had abortions, and that's the reality that we're living in. And so I think we need to really make sure they know that God forgives them, and we can help walk through that process with them. So
100% agree. My mantra has always been, we want women running to the church, not from the church's home. It's really.
Well, and you brought up the fake news, so there's an interesting segue there. So George Bartle, researcher in Full City, Arizona, he says that upwards of half of Christians are sitting out this election.
Yeah, I've heard the same.
And there's really reprehensible platforms that bring it thoughts, and they're like title, like the shade day. They say, well, you do a good thing for conscience and your biblical worldview to abstain from voting in this election. There are a list of evangelical leaders, some that I will not name. They've actually come out supporting Harris 24, and we're talking people who historically have helped translate Bible translations and provide research for study Bibles. People we've known personally. And Tim Walsh's position, in particular of life insurance, is the most marvelous.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing what were formerly evangelical leaders, some of them still have very large platforms. They're encouraging people to abstain from, God's people to abstain from voting altogether. That would keep out of the election upwards of 100 million people who've declared some sort of faith, and over 30 million people who would claim to be Christians. And part of it is, it's this, we hate Trump, so all Christians need to avoid politics. It's almost like this inner vow, we can't support Trump, therefore we're going to exit politics. But if you do that, what happens to the down ballot and the propositions in state?
That's right. Correct. And I've always been of the mindset, and I'm in a black company here, Christians sing out in terms of culture influence never turns out. We need our voices to be heard. There's a lot of different ways that we can do that. Right now, you have the opportunity to go to the ballot box and vote.
Yeah.
And even if you want to vote on one issue, fine. I don't care. Get out and vote. Do the right thing. We're going to talk about the abortion issue. You know, as a people where I vote, what you should be voting for.
Well, and, if you don't get riled up about the rights to be on the board, you have a functioning conscience in our God, because in the Old Testament, it was the government that tried to murder all the babies in the book of Exodus. It was in the days of Jesus that the government under Herod tried to murder the baby was, which is why Jesus' mother and father had to flee for their own life. And so when you see in the Bible government trying to take young human life, you see something similar in Daniel in the days of Babylon, where they're killing the young who are believers, and then they're mutilating, castrating, and imprisoning the rest. When you see the government taking the next generation, according to the Bible, it's very demonic and it's very clear. And
Married teenage brother, she didn't decide to abort Jesus, and he preferred. They're thankful for that. We have a Savior.
yeah, and so for us as believers, looking within the biblical storyline, to say, well, I'm not going to be involved in that issue because it's political. It's not political. God is the living God. God is the author of life. Life has political ramifications and implications, but life is biblical issues of God.
And sometimes your moral convictions and your religious convictions will intermingle on the political side, and that's okay. But I think there's this stigma today to where you just said it's political. There's an debate that was, let's say, I'm just out. No, that's where you can actually lean in. It's okay. You can actually touch something that's political. If there's an area for you to actually provide influence and direction, what you know is morally acceptable to Christ. This is what he wants to see. So get out there and do it and vote for it.
Well, and I would say, too, as a Bible teacher, people believe in the Lordship of Christ. He's over everyone and everything. So there is no such thing as sacred and secular. We don't get involved in that because that's not spiritual. Everything is.
Yeah.
If Christ is Lord over all, it means all is under his lordship and needs to be treated as such by God's people. And I've been telling our people too, I'm encouraging God's people to vote. There's still another weekend. I'm encouraging pastors to get up, settle up the curse, tell your people, hey, get to the polls, vote your values. And I really want the pastors to do that, and many of them come. And I want the Christians to go to the polls. And at the end of the day, if we don't, it's not going to get better. And it's not like people who are against our grounding on values are going to create a future that's better for our children and our grandchildren. It's just widespread foolishness. Well, you hear from even faith leaders, I don't want to be involved in the government. Well, the government wants to be involved in the education of your child.
Right.
The government wants to be involved in sexualization of your child. The government wants to be involved in the mutilation of your child. The government wants to be involved in your tax status. The government wants to be involved in your church and from when the pandemic, air quotes, hits. The government wants to be involved in your pocketbook and your property taxes. So it's like, you may not want to be involved in government. The government absolutely wants to be involved with you. And so are you going to push back and determine what the government can and cannot say and do? I mean, it's...
Being passive is not being.
No, there's a line in Revelation that talks about people who know they can do the kingdom of God. And one of those cowards.
And a line that I've said about 1,000 times in this election season is whether or not you're interested in politics, politics is interested in you.
Yeah.
And whether you want to take a national approach or want to take a domestic, regional approach here in Arizona, all politics are local. Period. That's where it begins. That's where it ends. And the duty is always like, I've been in the state for almost 46 years next month. I love Arizona. And anything that I can do with my abilities, my influence, my ability to vote, to make my voice heard, I want to preserve what we have here as best as I possibly can. Again, even from a pragmatic perspective, but also as a believer, I want to see that preserved in any way possible for myself, for my kids, and for my grandkids.
Well, it's for me as pastor. My real incense were men's have. And so for me, well, statistically talk about if the man who impregnates the woman, let's say it's appropriate, if he says, I want to be involved and I want to meet this child and raise this child, what does that do to just the statistics on abortion?
So it completely blows these statistics out of the wire. So we're talking, if he comes in and says, listen, I want to support children, not parent this child, that's upwards of 80% would say yes. Which really just speaks to the family architecture as it was designed by God and boy, right? She's yearning for that. More often than not, when women come in, it's a lack of community, friends, family, a father. They're just not there. They don't feel they have all the resources. They're afraid. And it's fear based on lack of community. Well, in this particular case, the man stepping up and saying, yeah, I take responsibility. I'm here.
Well, that's where, for me, it's not just looking at the woman to say, life is sacred and make the right choice. It's looking at the man and saying, can we get these guys to practice some measure of self-control so they're not impregnable with women they're not married to? And can we get them to aspire to be husbands and fathers? And when their child comes into the world, can we get them to own their masculine responsibilities so that they can provide for that woman and that child? And so to me, this is where the church and God's people have a massive opportunity, because our culture doesn't even know what a man is or does. They think their own masculinity is toxic. But if the church will occupy its rightful place, like an extended family, to say, and what we say is we will men up to bless women children. That's the entire tagline of Real Men. We're seeing this massive outpouring. I've got way more men than I have moved. We have, which is it, 12 over 5 over a day here in Parkinson's. So we've been walking half a mile to come to a weekly Bible study in prayer meeting. Many of them are young men, don't have a father, if they live in a broken home. And they're wondering, how do you get married? How do you make money? How do you have a family? And statistically, for the first time in 50 years, the polling is showing us that young men are trending conservative. They are not buying the progressive line. They do not want to be gender confused and mutilated. And so what we're seeing is young women are more progressive than ever, but young men are actually more conservative than ever. But the question is, if you want to know what a man is and does, where do you go? In college, you can get a women's studies degree, you can't get a men's studies degree. You can join the National Organization for Women. There's no National Organization for Men. If you want to learn how to be transgender, there's a lot of places for that. If you want to learn how to be a heterosexual husband or father, wear boots, truck, and wear a ball cap. Hypothetically, where do you go for it?
Sure.
And this is where I think the church has this massive opportunity, because if we really are about life, if we get the men and they're not getting the women pregnant, and then they are loving and leading those families, not only are we saving life, we're allowing the children to grow up with a father, which statistically, according to every piece of credible sociological data, reduces mental health, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, poverty, abuse of the girls, criminal activity by the boys, and ends up dropping out of school and being incarcerated. So literally, God's divine design still works.
Yep.
If the man does his job, the women and the children have a better future, and if he doesn't, there's no government big enough to replace the absence of that man. So my line is always more fathers and less government. That's my answer to everything.
Agreed. Well, I've been to Real Men, so I don't mind as well to get there. Honestly, the guy who was doing praise and worship that night, the night I was there, it's phenomenal. And it turns out we actually know each other from school, but that's a different story. But what you're talking about there is what I call creating generational impact, but it's also what I call a ripple effect throughout the community that transcends today. It goes to the future generations, our kids and our grandkids. And we talk about specifically what you're doing at Trinity. Trinity gifted choices. The largest single gift for the Mother's Day campaign this year, which is my meant for $100,000 from the organization. But even beyond that, and it's even more important, is what you're doing with the men, providing a resource. And I would say this is really the model of what the church should be. Right? If you go back to antiquity and look at when cities and villages were created, what was at the center? It was the church. And so we see this sort of going back to its roots happening. At least from my perspective, church is really going back to their roots to be this hub in the community, to be a resource. In your case, you're focusing strictly on that guy or head of them, because you know what the ramifications are if you do that. Right. And again, I love the tagline, more fathers, less government, percent all day long, because we know what that's going to yield 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Well, and what we're seeing too is even online, nationally and globally, and we're seeing hundreds of thousands on live stream. Some weeks as much as a million, and the biggest clips that we're seeing are housing into buildings and tens of millions. And so it just shows you there is a massive opportunity and there is a massive need. And if the church would step into that space, it literally creates generational transformation.
And we see the choices. We've launched this year what we call ProDen, which is men's mentorship education. An overwhelming comment we'll hear is when they sit down with the educator, and you're the first meal I've ever had a conversation with this. It's heartbreaking, but it's also invigorating at the same time, because you are teeing up massive transformation for this young man's life, for his wife, we hope, for his future children. And you get to be a part of building that. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to get you plugged into a local church community. Men that can rally around you so that when you have troubles, which are going to come, on how to raise my kids, how to be a husband, how to be a father, all of these. He's got a place to go. He's got a resource that is rooted in biblical foundation. It's overwhelmingly exciting, and we're seeing massive growth in that. And again, we just launched that this year. But that is a huge touch point, an intersecting point for the local church.
Well, and it's really not that complicated. Because if we keep pushing sexualization and sexual promiscuity, we increase child abuse, we increase unplanned pregnancy, we increase abortion and its influence on human body, and then we increase brokenness and trauma for those who have made that choice. Or we can say, hey guys, practice some self-control and don't just think about a good time, but a good legacy.
Absolutely.
And then you can undo all of it.
So we launched an STD testing program. And at first, there's some people that were confused, and they said, no, don't think about choices strictly in the pregnancy space. It's not. We operate in a reproductive health space. What's powerful about what we do on the STD side is that it's open to anybody and everybody. And it actually allows us to be proactive, because we can meet that young man, young woman earlier on, making to say that's been in their sexual journey, if you will. And we actually spent an hour with them. About 40 minutes is actually education, which they don't get anywhere else. So it gives an opportunity to educate, put back out, and hopefully they will not make those mistakes. And we won't see them 9 months down the face of pregnancy. That's where power in that is the education as well. And so I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Your position on life issue, what you've done, the fact that you and I are sitting here today having this conversation, how do we parlay that into messages to other church leaders, faith leaders around the country, what they can do as a church congregation, but also how can they take this message into their local community?
Most of me personally, to look at more abortion on good in the comments, because they show copies of what I do that. So for me, I started in high school as a non-Christian, a moral Jack-ish Catholic, Irish Catholic working class. And I was completely pro-abortion. About losing your jealous, forced population controls, read Margaret Sanger, thought that it made sense, believed the overpopulation, but the lie, was a full evolutionist that, the most that should survive, and we should get rid of those who are less than. Of course, in my great humility, I came to the conclusion that I was more fit, therefore there is breathing. And so I debated in high school, a student body president and president of my school district, and I debated. So I started arguing and won a lot of debates on pro-population controls and forced abortion. This whole position China. And I would make Christian kids just cry. I would break them. And then I went to college and studied under an African Marxist professor, and started doing debates on the life issue, and was really good at eviscerating the Christian kids, breaking. So where, never forget, one debate, I broke a kid so bad, they literally just broke down and cried. He had ran out of the class with hundreds of students. And
I just separated.
and then
Yeah, wasn't it, sir?
and then
I thought, oh, I don't think he's a Christian. He's happy to be a Christian. At least has a question.
the Simpsons were Grace Centers. Now we have 5 kids and 4 grandkids. They're 14 months apart. They're telling us we're
That
going
one.
20-something grandkids, and every day I wake up and just feel like I should hit myself in the head with a tire iron and being such a complete imbecile. But you were absolutely pro-life, and I adored you. And that's where, as a Christian, you did what a lot of Christians need to do, and that is to hold your ground and have the argument with somebody who's wrong with your character.
Yeah, I mean, you were brutal in your arguments about it. And I could see that I wasn't going to win the argument because it's a heart issue. And until God gets a hold of someone's heart, whether it's a pastor or someone in the community, really, we can't think like God is the way heart. And so, tragically, we see these leaders falling and failing in these decisions over the life issue, and they're cowards, or they're not looking into the Word of God and seeing that He represents light every time. He is the determiner of light and death, and it's just sad that we can't fill them the Christian, every single Christian pastor to represent light like God does, and so. When you're doing your part, you guys are totally
We love
hard. And it's nice to be able to come together in conversations like this and say, okay, we're all doing what we can do. But like you said, how do we get under faith here? From on side was that conversation, like be honest about it. And asking them the question, why do you believe that? That's not a word, that's word,
Well, for me,
It's conversations.
yeah, I tell my people, like, if you disagree with me, there was a day that I agreed with you. I was wrong. And so I repented. And I was transformed by the renewing of my mind. This is what Christianity is about. And so for me, it was like, okay, here's what the Bible says. Now, I either need to disagree with the Bible, or I need to repent and change my mind. And I had to repent and change my mind. I was wrong. And just, today, like, just a thought, now that I'm a dad, my kids, that I even thought about was us. Now that I've got 4 grandkids, so they're only 14 months apart, and both the parents is Charlie Hawkins, my father. I remember we got that. Like, what could grandpa and papa and mama? That's what I am. And the problem, like, when you're thinking of these things of the abstract, and then you actually look at children. Like Jesus said, well, it'd be better to be followed the sea with no stone around your neck than to bring harm to one of these. I think that our God came out just as a man, but as a zygote. Right. I mean, he was, he was in the mother's womb. John the Baptizer was still the listener, praising God from his mother's womb. And when you start to just understand what I call the fatherhood of God, it's a complete heart of life and blessing and protection for women and children. So, with pastors and faith leaders, you can either, here's what I say, you can either have their approval or his anointing, which can. And oftentimes people are looking at it like, well, he's going to leave my church, what's going to happen by doing this? And what will happen with the complaint department, let me open more, what's going to happen in my inbox? And so you're living for their approval where you can for his anointing. And if you step out in faith and courage and you say, I'm going to say what God says, I'm going to do what God commands, and I will endure whatever price that I have, living, losing my job, which will happen to some pastors if they do their job, then that's okay, because I would rather have his anointing and their approval. And so we work for Jesus Christ. You belong to Jesus Christ. The people belong to Jesus Christ. The church belongs to Jesus Christ. The platform belongs to Jesus Christ. The pulpit belongs to Jesus Christ. And servant belongs to Jesus Christ. And the word of God belongs to Jesus Christ. And it's not yours. Your steward belongs to him. And if at any point you're not obeying what he wants, you're going to face a severe discipline or disobedience. And so to me, it is the fear of the Lord.
Absolutely.
If you don't fear God, you should not be in any sort of leadership position.
So I have one final question, and to both of you, and I ask this a lot. But given what you do, where you sit, what you oversee, what does success look like in this issue? However you want to break that down and articulate that. And that's a deep, loaded question, but I would love to know what your thoughts are.
At the end of the day, for me, it's kind of the all things. And it sounds fine, it really is true. When I stand before God and give an account, what kind of day is that going? Yeah, to me, I try to live in light of the last day. There's a lot of hard days, there's a lot of complex days, there's a lot of anxious days, and there's a lot of conflicted day. But there's one day on the calendar that really matters. And I firmly convinced, I know that I am going to die and stand before Jesus Christ, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, unveiled in full divine glory and glory. And I'm going to see nail-scarred hands. And he's going to ask me, okay, let's talk about your life. Did you say what I told you to say? Did you do what I told you to do? And I may still go to heaven, but my judgment, my rewards, my eternal state is really going to be determined. We're saved by grace, but we're rewarded for obedience of others. So you can't lose your salvation, but you can lose your eternal rewards. And the last thing I want to do is stand before the Lord Jesus Christ, look him in the eye, and have him look at me and say, so I truly just, Lord, so that's not what I want here on the last day. I want to hear what I'm getting pickings. And so to me, that's everything.
How about you?
Yeah, I think for me, knowing and living with a clear conscience that I spoke the truth in my, with what God gave me, with the people that God put in front of me, no matter how hard it was, and seeing the fruit of that is the success. We get to preach the gospel. We get to tell people the truth. And the success of it is to see people's shackles break off and to see them love Jesus and have joy in the Lord. And it's the peace of eternity here before God comes to rescue us. That's success. I can't imagine telling people lies and trying to live themselves. I can't. Like, I know I'm not perfect at always standing firm, but I, with everything in me, want to know that I have stood firm and done God's asking me to do similar. But just like their conscience, I can't get up and pray walk these women that God has given me to teach and deceive them and tell them lies and their culture. They want answers, and the answers are in the Word of God. And so success looks like not helping, because that is through the power of the Holy Spirit that I do that anything. But then transferring that and seeing the way and love what God is doing. They'll have it because of the truth that is set in theory.
Well, I know you're not looking for my religion, but I just want you both to know I love your boldness. You do. And I think I've shared with you numerous times when in sales growth and choices. I'm a huge believer that as a man, like if you don't have a passion to defend those that need defending or something, and that's what gets me up every day is what you said. I'm a temporary steward of choices. I will be here forever. But when I'm gone, I want to look back and give a look back and go, yeah, we took it from here to here. It was always 100% God's and always will be. But we were good stewards of what we did. I'm standing on the shoulders of the people that came before me. And I have other people after me did the same thing. And that includes all of our frontline staff and everybody that works there. And then collectively, the church partnerships and you guys and everybody else. So I just want to thank you guys again for what you do, being bold. And but that boldness and truth with grace and at the same time.
You know what we do? Shepherd flock, the church. We're doing counseling, household visits, weddings, funerals. You've got bowls ministry. It's 700 women a week or whatever it is, Sally. Some of them are pattern. So many of them have sexual trauma. We're not just, putting out things on the internet, but also on the ground with people, just like you are. And we would encourage, going into the selection season, faith leaders, encourage your people, use your last opportunity in the pulpits, those shrooms and the bulls. In addition, for those who aren't believers, don't send this out. And even if you're not super excited about your options at the national level, to me the choice is very, very clear. Christian, conservative, Republican. And those are my priority voters, and that's how I vote. That's how we vote. But even if you're not excited at the national level, pay attention to the local issues, pay attention to the local and the state officials that are running, and really pay attention to the propositions in your state on the issue of life. And vote, vote, vote according to your conscience, according to the word God, and encourage others to do likewise.
Agreed. Cool.
Thank you, Bob. We appreciate you.
Thank you.